Hey everyone, this is Joshua Kirk here with you once again. Now it's time for episode 78 of Album of the Day, in which today I'm going to sort of talk about a band that I know I've already reviewed them like 5 episodes, like 5, maybe 6 episodes ago. But, of course, I'm here talking about them again. Well, it's just because, the way I know if I want to review it is like, no matter if I've reviewed that artist several episodes ago or not, it just feels new to me and feels like something worth talking about. So, that's kind of the way it works for my album reviews. So let's just get right into it, shall we? So today's band is an indie rock trio from the Washington State who managed to put out like music that is like ferocious and visceral and oftentimes dealing with issues in modern politics. The band is called Sleater-Kinney. They've been around since 1994. I'm here to review I think this is probably maybe their 7th album or something like that. But yeah, it came out back in 2005, and it is called The Woods, which I have a CD copy of. I actually got this for Christmas, so I just kind of started getting into the band. Starting with their new album, No Cities to Love, but I'm just now getting into like the older stuff that they're doing, and I wanted to talk about this because this is definitely one of their best albums. They have a pretty good discography. Like, Sleater-Kinney is actually one of those bands that's never put out a terrible album. When they put out an album, it's usually been really good. So, really good. I mean, it's pretty rare for bands to usually put out something that's consistent for every album. A few other... Like, the only other bands I can think of that can really deliver with pretty much every album they put out would have to be Spoon or Dr. Dog or something like that. But anyway, this is the packaging for The Woods. It's in a digipack. Their first album on Sub Pop. And this is actually the album they released before their hiatus in 2006. Because the band went on to, like, other projects. As I mentioned some of those if you've seen my review of One Beat that I did 5 episodes ago. There's a picture of the band there. And this album is produced by David Friedman, who's best known for his work with the Flaming Lips. So, like, this is like pretty much the second time they've worked with a producer. Second time they've worked with like an outside producer, meaning someone other than John Goodmanson. They worked with and they worked with the other one being The Hot Rock, which was produced by Roger Maldonado, who is best known for his work with groups like Yola Tango and stuff like that. Here's a booklet with the lyrics, which some really good lyrics on this record. I'll go into better detail about some of those. And I recently had a conversation with Philip, who works for Consequence of Sound. He said he really likes this record, so if you're watching, Philip, this is for you. And the disc has like artwork of like some wood on it. And plus I love this cover art too. Kind of fits in with the aesthetic of the music on here. So yeah, that's my CD copy of The Woods, the 7th album by Sleater-Kinney. So, when I listened to this album, I right away noticed there's definitely a difference between this album and past records, like Dig Me Out or The Hot Rock. In my opinion, this is probably, some people may say The Hot Rock is probably their darkest album, but in my personal opinion, I think The Woods is probably the band's darkest and noisiest album to date. It's a very noisy, but yet I feel very playful and very kind of enjoyable record. It's, it takes a few listens. Initially, you might be like, oh, this is too abrasive, too loud, or something like that, but as you keep listening to it, you start to realize that this album is actually very, very well done, and, it's not being loud just so it can, impress metalheads or stuff like that. Like, this is like the opposite of a heavy metal record. It's not like super heavy, like metal kind of noisy, but more just kind of just abrasive guitars and, just piercing vocals from Corin Tucker and Carrie Brownstein on here. And some pretty, as well as there's pretty in the moment lively drumming from Janet Weiss. You pretty much see that kind of aesthetic right away with the first song on this album, which is called The Fox. And also, like, the lyrics on the record are another thing that, shows this album as, like, pretty much definitely a gem in their discography. That would be obvious on songs like, there's a song on here called Jumpers, which is pretty much like the lead single off the album, I guess. Basically a song, that does deal with issues with politics. In this case, this one deals with, kind of a terrible thing that's happening where more people are committing suicides by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. So, like, some of the lyrics talk about sitting in a traffic jam with just people just, doing something awful out there. So yeah, like, lyrically, it's definitely a pretty heavy-handed song. But, like, musically, so it makes sense that musically it's pretty, that it's pretty intense musically, too. So, yeah, like, the intensity of this record is something that's definitely a new thing on this album that, like, this is arguably, definitely, like, One Beat had a little more melodic stuff, but this album is a little more just kind of the band taking risks and stuff like that. Following Jumpers is the song Modern Girl, which basically, talks about, it uses, like, a lot of wordplay, like, for, like, being happy, hungry, and angry. There's a lyric in it, there's a lyric in it about, like, being hungry, and, like, like, there's a lyric in it that says, I took my money and bought a donut, the hole's the size of the entire world. So it's, like, some really clever wordplay going on with this song on here. And there's a few extra instruments on here, like, there's, like, some, is that a melodica or a harmonica that I'm hearing on the recording? It's something that's, like, a mouth organ or stuff like that, but whatever it is I'm hearing sounds pretty nice on there. And there's also, like, some sort of organ on there that's, like, used as a bed on there. Oh, and some orchestra bells appear, like, during, like, the third chorus. But one song in particular that I can relate to a lot on this record would have to be the second single off the album, Entertain. It's a song basically talking about mainstream music being so safe and predictable that's just not about the craft or the art or, the musicality of the artist. It's just more about commercial success and radio play and having to play it 5,000 times in front of 10,000 screaming girls. So one lyric that I can relate to in this song is, like, talking about, basically, sounding like 1972 or 1984 and just saying, 1984, you're such a bore. Sort of saying how a lot of music in the 80s was just plain terrible. So like that was the time of like bad music and, you know, bad dancing pretty much. So this is pretty much a song that pretty much sort of says, well, why can't we have more art instead of just a bunch of safe, cute choruses? And like, you know, the vocals on here, definitely some very fierce vocals on here. Like Carrie Brownstein, the vocals on here, it sounds as if she's about to attack someone or something like that. With how, you know, vocally, with how vocally intense and aggressive that she appears to be on this song. So yeah, what I really like about this band is how they're just, it's really refreshing to hear something with that's a bit more aggressive in a time where music is just, you know, you know, all soft and like, you know, kind of self-indulgent. Like these guys are, rather, these girls, you know, they definitely show a sense of like, you know, aggression, that urgency that I think a lot of rock music today that just lacks. Some other really clever wordplay appears on the song Roller Coaster. Coaster. What I really like about this song and the lyrics is how the lyrics, you know, you can't quite tell what it's about, but yet you're seeing that they're trying to say something in a very, you know, charming way. It, it could have to do with just, you know, the band trying to just, you know, make you say, well, listen to the rest of this record, because we got more in store for you that'll, you know, that'll sort of tell you the truth with life or something like that. Yeah, so like, you know, I think they're trying to say in that, but using a metaphor by saying, like, stay and I will make you dinner, or something like that. And I do like how the song, you know, sort of, you know, changes its tempo a little bit. And like in the middle of the song, like all of a sudden, like it's like all rocking and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, there's a moment of silence. And then it goes right back to like the, how it sounded at like the beginning of the song. And then the track Steep Air is sort of, oh yeah, it is called Steep Air. The track Steep Air, I like to think of it as like the companion piece to Jumpers, because it kind of has a similar topic going on with the lyrics, and it has Corin Tucker, you know, and like Corin Tucker has like some like, I don't know if it's Corin or Carrie, but it's like either one of those members have like a distinctive, like, distorted vocal going on the verses of that song, which sounds as if singing into like maybe a bullhorn or something like that. But like, you know, like the longest song in this album would have to be the 11-minute epic Let's Call It Love, which, you know, for about 5 minutes there's words, but then like the last 6 minutes of it is just a, you know, just a jam of the band, you know, creating some really beautiful guitar interplay between each other, to pair with, you know, the kind of, you know, all over the place, drumming. So don't be fooled by the length of this song, because it is definitely one of the standout tracks on the album. Like, they're willing to make a 6-minute jam, but, you know, like, initially, you know, on paper, doesn't sound very good. Sounds a little boring and self-indulgent, but the result will actually tell you that, that they're using the 6-minute jam. They're not using it as, like, filler. They're just, they're just, having a little fun with, they're just having a little bit of fun with, improvisation, which, if you go to their shows, improvisation is such a big thing at their shows. So they've incorporated a little bit of that into this album. Other Sleater-Kinney records have usually been like about 30 minutes long, and a lot of the songs were just 2 minutes and a half, but there's longer songs on this album. There's more 4+ minute tracks on here. But like the longest one would have to be Let's Call It Love, which, again, if you look at the running time, you may think it's just going to be some sort of, meandering guitar jam, but but it actually really does work on the album. And what I do also like is how the end of that song is actually the beginning of the last song in here, Nightlight. Light on here. I like it when it ties into there. So yeah, if you're looking for a really great indie rock album that's very noisy and and shows a band just fearlessly taking risks, well then The Woods would have to be the album for you. So this is definitely this may be on the top 5 best records of 2005. So that's my review of the album, and I'll see you for episode 79.